2025. And I would appreciate if everyone in the audience would turn off their cell phones as this meeting is being recorded. Ellen, can you please do the roll call?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Ms. Callan Carson?
Here.
Mr. Carey?
Present.
Mrs. DeRoberts?
Here.
Ms. Hernandez-Williams?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Ms. Walters?
Present.
Mr. Weiner?
Here.
Vice Chair, Mr. Lacavoli?
Here.
Chairperson, Mrs. Granato?
Present.
And Weathersfield High School Student Representative Anushka Gandhi.
Here.
Welcome.
Okay, and Anusha, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. And Anusha, if I'm correct, you're going to give a report for our student program, not for our student and staff recognition tonight?
Yes, I did.
Great.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Anushka Gandhi, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be the high school student representative. With that said, I'd love to get into what's been happening at the high school for the past weeks. Before school started, freshmen had a great introduction to the high school, where they were escorted around by members of the Eagle Crew. Additionally, seniors were able to get a chance to paint their parking spots. It was an amazing way to kick off their senior years. The following day, we had our annual First Day the Eagle Way, consisting of numerous activities like pickleball, bouncy houses, and my personal favorite, the dunk tank. Athletics and clubs are all underway and off to a successful start. On another note, there's a new project that's been introduced at the high school called Changemakers. This year, the WHS Student Government and our School Leadership Program want to hear from students as they work to improve the high school for everyone. This could be a physical change to the building, like adding a space for students, having an event they'd like to see, an extracurricular opportunity, or anything else that will help foster school spirit, involvement, and ownership. To conclude, students in AP Government and Civics classes are going on a field trip later this week to visit the Vietnam War Memorial Tribute Wall. Overall, school is off to an amazing start, and we are so excited to see what the rest of the school year holds for us. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. And that's life at our high school. Thank you very much. All right, so next on our agenda, we have nothing else for student program and services. Okay. Next on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes for our regular Board of Ed meeting on August 26, 2025. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. Any questions, any corrections? All right, let's make a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Those minutes are approved. Now, is there anyone wishing to make a comment? Come on up to the podium and state your name and address. And may I remind you that we have a 5-minute limit, and also remind you that board members do not respond to comments. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Whibby, you have some communications to share?
I do, and I'll reference us to packet 2, reference 2 and 2A. Oh, you know what, I'm sorry, we do not have communications. I'm skipping to number 6 for action items.
Okay, so wait on that. Okay, this is further down on our agenda. All right, well, tonight we have 3 recommended motions. Matt, I'm going to put you on right now to read recommended motion 6A.
So 6A, I'm going to combine 1 and 2 in this motion. Moved that the Weathersfield Board of Education approve policy number 5175, Connecticut School Climate, and policy number 5650, Restorative Practices Response.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? This is our second reading on these. All set? Okay, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstentions? That motion is approved. And we have another motion. Jim, would you read motion 6B for us?
Certainly. Move to establish the Weathersfield Board of Education as the Assistant Superintendent Executive Search Committee.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yep.
Can we get some background on the purpose of this? This is new to us, and what your thought process was?
Absolutely. So just as part of our ongoing efforts to ensure rigorous and confidential selection process for the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, I'm requesting that the board establish an executive search committee. The search committee will review ideal candidate qualifications, discuss interview outcomes, and consider potential appointments in a manner that protects the privacy of the applicants and supports the integrity of the process. So I would intend to bring a final candidate to the Board of Education at the September 23rd meeting. So that would be the time that we would meet at the conclusion of the meeting, similarly to how we would do it in an executive session. This was with the advice of board's legal counsel to do it this way, Mr. Carey. So I was thinking about going down the pathway of the, just setting it up in an executive session, but our attorney had advised us to go this pathway instead. Ultimately, we're just doing it so that the board can meet in a session to meet with the candidates, ask questions, and have some deliberation about a potential candidate. We begin the first rounds of interviews for the assistant superintendent next week, so we'll be looking to interview between 6 and 8 at the most candidates for assistant superintendent. I have to tell you, we're having a hard time just getting the pool down to 6 or 8. There's just a ton of outstanding candidates. We're going to have some tough choices of really excellent, high-quality people who've applied for the job. Now, the job closes on Friday, so a lot of people wait until, the last minute. There's probably a good chance we're going to get 7 or 8 more outstanding applicants between now and even the end of the week. So if we close the job today, we would have a great plan. So it can only get better between now and Friday. So that's a little bit of the background about what we're looking to do and why we would do this. So again, this would commence at the September 23rd Board of Ed meeting, similarly to how you do it at the end in an executive session.
Question. So how would that work, though? Because the meeting would have to adjourn for us to start a committee meeting, and according to our bylaws, a special committee cannot have the authority only authority is to make recommendations. So then we wouldn't be making the vote that night to hire, because we'd be adjourned from our regular board meeting.
Correct. Yeah.
So how's that going to work then? We're not, within the board itself, will never vote on that person because it can't happen that night.
That was the way Attorney Murphy had explained it to me. Yeah.
So perhaps this is something that we need to flesh out a little more?
Would you prefer to just do it in an executive session and at that time, and then come back and approve it at the end of the meeting, I guess?
Well, I'm just going by what our bylaws states. I'm just trying to figure out where Attorney Murphy's, and he's not here to address it, so where he's coming from when it says that the sole discretion of the committee would be only to make recommendations to the full board. So therefore, for the committee to convene, we'd have to be adjourned as a board, and then we couldn't come back because the meeting would be adjourned to actually hire the person.
So I guess what we could do is we could have the non-meeting beforehand, I guess.
Yes, that
would be the other way to do it.
right. I'm just trying to iron out the process. I have no problem with the actual committee. I'm just trying to iron out how it's going to work statutorily within our regulations of a board meeting.
Well, I'm glad this is up for discussion. Come on up,
Dr.
yep. Thank you.
So basically,
Basically, it's similar to when you did your search for your superintendent. So your meetings would be non-meetings, because that's under FOIA. That's one of the conditions that you can conduct non-meetings for an executive search. So whatever your bylaw is, you could still follow your bylaw, but all of the other preliminary work would be done by the committee.
Correct. No, I understand all that. I'm just going back to them. As a board, then, we would have to have another board meeting to actually have a motion, because the actual board meeting of that Tuesday night, if we did it after the meeting, that meeting would have to be adjourned for us to hold this committee meeting.
Right. You have to do the business at the board
Yes.
meeting. Right. Correct.
Okay, any other discussion here? Liz?
I believe I heard you say that a final candidate will be presented to us. Would we handle that the same way that we handled the high crest principal?
Exactly the same.
Okay, so, which was in executive session,
Yeah,
and we came back out.
yeah. That's the way I wanted to do it, but, so. Why don't we do this? Why don't we approve this? And if, or I'll recommend that we approve this, and if need be, I can circle back. We have a few weeks that I can work with Attorney Murphy, and that way we have both processes queued up. We can do it either way, so.
All right, any other discussion on that? All right, so we'll leave it as is. You'll work it, okay. So we will vote on this motion? Okay. So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion is approved. Thank you, everyone. We'll get that. All right, so this evening, we do have 4 district reports. We have a facilities report, a vacancy report, an enrollment report, and a Board of Ed workflow and meeting process report. And I'll hand that over to you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So, reference 4 has 2 pieces of information in it, just the board committee schedule, as well as dates to remember for September. So I've added that into the packet for board members' review, and I'll pause for any discussion or deliberation on the schedules and the calendar.
Am I allowed to ask a question, or just, can I only make a comment? I can ask a question.
Of course, yeah.
Is there a minimum number of times that we are supposed to meet in certain committees? Because I do have questions about facilities, like about the frequency of the meetings, and I felt like it was a little light last year, and I wasn't sure, because with the upcoming referendum, we have been asked about a maintenance plan and other items that relate to that, so I'm curious to see.
Sure, I'm planning on speaking to that in item 5,
Okay.
5.4, but I believe the board has the latitude to have as many committee meetings or as few.
Okay.
The only thing that's mandated by statute is that I believe you have to have, and I did reference it in here in the packet somewhere, so I'm going off of memory, but I believe you're required to have Board of Ed meetings every 6 months. So you have to have 2 board meetings a year statutorily. Now, bylaws for the Wethersfield Board call for 2 meetings a month on the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday, and then it's quiet about everything else.
Sure.
But, so statutorily, you're, and then now your second part of your question is good practice. You want to schedule a workflow that makes sense for what's important for the board, for the community. You decide, obviously, just some examples. Obviously, I recommend you have a finance committee meeting every month, at least 10 months. I recommend that you have facilities meetings between 2 and 4 times a year, and we can kind of work that out. And I'll talk to that in greater detail in a few minutes when we get to a future agenda item. But to answer the question, twice a year is statutorily mandated. Wethersfield Board of Ed bylaws, on or around the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday of the month is, and it's not even mandated, it's like a suggestion from the bylaws, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more discussion on those four, all four of them? Okay, I'd make a comment on the board change for our meetings. I do like one of the options there because we really are looking, we're all young up here, but we're looking for young families too to be part of our Board of Ed. And in order to get them, we really have to curtail our time. And less meetings would help young parents a lot. So to have two board meetings, of which one is a committee meeting, board meeting, would really help. It would also help in our quorum issue that we have so often. So I'm thrilled at the idea that we're looking at this and we'll all get together and make sure we have the one that we're looking for, okay?
So
Any other comments?
I jumped ahead a little bit. I have a couple of other reports to share with you. The first is the facilities report. So if I can point the board to reference 5A. So every year, if the board so pleases, I would like to come forward to the Board of Education and share with you a list of all of the projects, the summer facilities projects that were completed and conducted on the schools and central office over the summer. And and that's included in this report at the end. Director Katz was good enough to provide me with the list of all the projects. And those are, I don't know if I called it an addendum, but it's the last 2 pages of reference 5A. This is all the work that's been done. And I provided a quick executive summary for the board on this as well. And I'll just kind of walk you through some talking points connected to this. There's a substantial list of projects. Nearly all the work was done in occupied buildings, which required careful coordination to protect students and staff in the summer programming. As you know, our buildings are heavily used during the school year and throughout the summer. So the facilities folks worked really hard to make sure that they were working around the kids, the staff, and the programs. I'm just going to highlight kind of the key work. I'm not going to read the 100 things that were listed on there. But the work was kind of divided up 4 ways. Health and safety work, there was mold abatement work, ceiling tile replacements, targeted HVAC repairs to improve air quality. There was infrastructure work, was roof patching, masonry repairs, plumbing and electrical fixes. There was learning environment work, flooring replacements, painting, classroom reconfigurations, systems maintenance, generator servicing, which is great as long as they turn the switches back on when they're done servicing them, boiler, chiller, preventative maintenance. And this was a significant cost, to the town, kind of keeping these buildings up. Just a strategic observation. A significant portion of the summer work and the costs expended is driven by the age and the condition of our oldest elementary school buildings. The facilities require frequent, labor-intensive interventions that are more expensive and less sustainable than modern, efficient buildings. So you're paying a lot of money to maintain older buildings. There's a cost to that, certainly. And you think about educational impact, reactive maintenance diverts resources from strategic improvements that directly enhance teaching and learning. And recurring health and safety issues will keep coming up. Air quality, these can disrupt instruction. So moving forward, I think the summer work highlights the needs for long-term facility strategies focused on capital investment and modern, efficient, and healthy learning environments. These investments will reduce recurring maintenance costs, improve sustainability and energy efficiency, and provide stable, high-quality environments. So in closing, if the board so chooses, every September I'll provide you with this type of report. Here's what happened over the summer, as much as we can, connect the costs, the timeliness, And it's an opportunity for the board to have discussion to align facilities, kind of as Liz had mentioned. I'll provide these types of reports as an opportunity for the board to have deliberation and discussion, and I'll give you some other examples in a bit. And I didn't want to read the whole report at you. I'm really proud. I worked on this infographic that summarized what I talked about
That's a
there.
good
I
one.
never really knew how to do that, so that was a great area of growth for the superintendent, creating this infographic. But anyhow, so I'll pause here, and this is an opportunity for for board deliberation, questions, discussion, and that was the purpose for this.
Okay, Christina?
Yeah, Superintendent Wibby, I do like the infographic, but more importantly, it's great to do it in September, because then the budget can get started, we can start working on the budget and what we need earlier on. And I've said that multiple times because money talks, and the buildings need that attention, and so it's been a lot of money for that, but it's very clear cut, and we appreciate that. It's broken down by schools, specifics, itemized, and you need that to save money, and also for transparency for the taxpayers, really. So, thank you.
And in the future, that list will even probably have more of a line item budget connected to it. So as we do this more frequently, we'll get more specific with information connected between the money and the work done.
Okay, Chuck?
Mr. Whitby, so the list is large at the high school, which is disturbing, as where high school is only 8 to 10 years old. I mean, and the board needs to remember, although it's our taxpayer money, none of this falls under the board's purview. It's all under the town's purview. So we don't actually budget for anything on this document. The town does. But I mean, one thing that stood out was, and I haven't heard about this, the urinal stalls that we needed 10 of them due to vandalism. If you could get more information for the board on that, that's new. I haven't heard that at the high school. And then I'm curious about, I mean, some of this stuff at the high school is maintenance that should be occurring, painting floors, painting walls, that's great stuff that should be power washing. I'm curious to know if any of this, what is unusually happening at a high school that's less than 10 years old, give or take. I can't remember when I was on that committee. But like what is from wear and tear and what is just normal maintenance of a school? If you could give us a little idea of that.
Sure. What I can do is, as we move forward, it is important to code work done. In the facilities world, they call them PMs, which is a fancy way of preventative maintenance work. So a lot of times they'll code the work as repairs or PMs, preventative maintenance, and it helps you kind of get an understanding on what was planned. You're going to do belts and filter replacements are going to be PMs because you're going to do those 3 or 4 times a year. But as Chuck said, sometimes things get broken that are not planned for, and they're outside of the lifespan, and that's important to look at. And that's something that we can certainly talk to our friends at the town side to try to gather that data. I am a firm believer in gathering facilities data helps us become more strategic.
No, I agree. And I mean, in all my years, we've always gotten updates like this, so this is great. But what's concerning is I wonder what our paint schedule is. So when we had facilities, when I was first on the board 14 years ago, our facilities director had a yearly paint schedule. So it seems like we're painting at the high school and a little bit here and there. Can we find out if the town has a schedule where they're redoing our classrooms and looking at trying to making sure they're maintained paint-wise and blinds?
I know one of the answers to this. During COVID, the director of physical services had them paint every single classroom. Know that because she's mentioned it. Because she needed to keep them busy, and the schools weren't being occupied, so she had them paint every single classroom.
Yeah, it's
So it's been
usually
recent.
good practice every 4 or 5 years. So you're doing about 20 to 25% of the painting each summer. But I'll get a specific answer on what their rotation is on that.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to make a comment on the maintenance, and it's what we need. We need to move towards a maintenance plan rather than replying to things that have happened or will happen. And with possible changes in the future, this is exactly what we need. Liz?
I was going to ask, now, what was your role in working with the town, if any, or is it the town's decision to assess the condition of the schools and say X, Y, and Z needs to be done? Because I'm curious, were you a recipient of what was done because you asked for that information? Or were you proactively sought out so that, it was more of a partnership? I echo the sentiments, from my fellow board members consistently. And my concern would be, how much decision-making power do you have or do you need with the town to make sure that the facilities are maintained in a way that's not going to be overly costly? Bobby, you had mentioned a reference to what I would call proactive versus reactive. And I know that a schedule of sorts will be required at some level, but how do we solve this? And any thoughts?
We've got this. I can tell you, I didn't have any input, and it's not fair to them. I don't want it to come across like nobody listened to me. I mean, I started in July, and they had already done the prioritization and planning for the summer, and I'm not going to, it would have been foolish of me to come in and try to change things. I mean, equipment had been ordered, everything was moving in the direction. Now, moving forward, what I would ask for is a dual inspection. I would like to inspect with the town and with my administrators in the springtime and set a priority schedule for the year. And that gives them a good portion of the summer to get a lot of those projects done, like similar to what you see here. So that's how we can infuse our voice into what's important in the buildings, is the inspections that happen in the spring. And then we would conduct a second set of inspections 2 or 3 weeks before school was to open. And we would go in and check in on things that, they were either complete, in progress. And that's the structure that I'd like to kind of bring back to the board. Like next year, this list may very well have like an O, a C, or an N on it, so that we can kind of keep our eye on it. And as Christina mentioned, this does turn into the capital requests that I would probably look to bring to the board in maybe as early as October, probably more reasonably at a November board meeting, and say, here's our list for the year. But I think that twice a year inspection schedule together as a team, we have a voice in setting the priorities with them. We work together. Honestly, they've been wide open to that concept. We've had some great conversations. The chair and I had a great opportunity to meet with folks from the town side, and I see a great partnership in this work together. But I think those are some of the structures and strategies and procedures that we would get started in, and how we'll properly maintain our buildings and set the right priorities for what we need, and making sure our voice is included there. And it seems like everybody is really interested in moving in this direction. So next September, I'm very excited to come back and see where we came from this report to maybe next year's opening a school report. And I do think it's a good idea to keep the board in the loop on this a couple times during the year, 2 or 3 times, where we might infuse updates, either be it at a committee level or at the full board. But I definitely would want to keep the Board of Ed informed on how things are going, just because it's important. It's so connected to our budgeting process and our capital project process. So
Wonderful news. Thank you.
Anyone else? Jim?
Thanks so much. I'm glad that there's going to be a maintenance checklist of sorts. That's going to be great. We didn't get to $65 million. Hopefully we don't get there again. So thank you for that. The other question I had for you, this list is great. Is it possible in the future to maybe get some of the costs captured? Because looking at this list, I don't know if it's, $300,000 or $2 million. I can't wrap my head around that. So going forward, that would be great. Thank you.
I promise you, Mr. Riley, we will 100% connect the costs to this. I asked for this. It was my fault because I asked for this kind of late in the game, and I said, is there any way we could put together a list? So I wish I had started working on this a little bit earlier, but you should expect to see that with costs connected to it, definitely. Yes.
Thank you. I mean, certainly this is a great start.
I would just say that we also need to be clear on short-term planning and long-term planning, and I know that we've discussed this before, and I believe this will happen. A lot of what we're seeing on this list for the high school especially, that is a lot of it's short-term things, and I actually like seeing this list that is so long on the high school because it shows that, A, the amount of traffic that goes through the high school and the use that building gets, and people just have no idea, it's constantly being used, whether it's a floor tile being cracked or a rug that needs being replaced, but that it's actually getting done, right? And it's a newer building, but you got to still keep everything up. These are the short-term maintenance things that, are happening every day. They're being painted, they're doing, this. But what's more, I think a lot of people worry about is the long-term fixes. We know that within 10 years, something is going to go or need to be a bigger priced item will need to be replaced at the high school or at the middle school or wherever. And those are the concerns. It's do we know and can we plan on it and can we budget for it and not just let it sit there and fester and just replace with, do replacement parts you have to find on eBay, which is happening in the elementary schools. They can even find replacement parts for some of this plumbing. So, but I have all the confidence in the world that this is the way we're moving, and then it'll be transparent, just seeing that there's a plan, that we know what to expect in the future, especially for the long term. We know how long these things will last. I will also say for people that may not read it, but the town manager's report is he puts one out every 2 weeks, and he also on that report lists all the things that get fixed in the elementary school. I mean, I don't know if it's all, but it is a long list of things. I think they added it maybe last year, and he also puts in things that were fixed in other buildings in town and other things that physical services done. But it does give the town resident who reads his report every 2 weeks kind of an idea of what's been happening. So.
Anyone else for discussion? I'm glad we're talking maintenance, everyone. It's a need.
Madam Chair, the second report that I'm bringing to the board's attention is another one that you can reasonably expect that I'll bring it to the Board of Education every September, maybe even in August. We might get to the point where we can have this prepared for an August board meeting, but it's called a vacancy report, and it shows the end of the year vacancies that we had in June, and it just benchmarks it against the vacancies that you had last June, the year prior and the year prior, so you can kind of see what the patterns are internally. So as you can see, we had 32 total resignations of our teachers last year. 8 were due to retirement, 24 were due to non-retirement, and we had a 10% turnover rate. Now, if you look at the first bullet underneath that, in 2024, 2025, teacher turnover rates across the nation were at 16%. We don't currently have a rate for the state of Connecticut, so it shows that our turnover rate is slightly below what the national average is, and that's something that we want to keep an eye on, because there is definitely concerns around teacher shortages across the nation, and some areas are worse than others. Certain STEM areas, mathematics, science, special education, there's various areas that you have a harder time to find folks. If you look at the graphs down on the bottom of this report, you can see the codes connected to the exit interviews for people. You see, the percentage that people left due to retirement. Some reported workplace fit. Some reported they just moved to a different school or family reasons or end of the assignment. That means they might have been hired on a one-year contract. So it just gives a little bit more data. So this is the second type of report that I would like to provide to the Board of Ed, if the board likes seeing this each year. This makes sense either in August or September to just give you information about what's kind of going on with the turnover. So I'll pause for discussion and questions if you have any.
It looked from the graph like there were a number of people who did participate, excuse me, in the exit interviews, which is wonderful. That has not necessarily been true in the past. So we did have a high compliance rate.
It appears so. I wasn't here at the time of the exit interview, so I can't tell you qualitatively, but we are, as of last year, we are required by the state of Connecticut to provide we have to provide 6 exit questions to all staff who leave, and we actually are required to provide that data to the State Department of Education. So we are mandated to work with our staff on at least those 6 questions. I like to see more questions because I personally like to sit and do exit interviews because you get other information from people outside of just those 6 questions. But so I can tell you, I can't tell you how these went on, but it does represent everybody who left, and it looks like everybody who left participated at least in the minimum exit interview criteria.
And I did notice that it was now law that we need to do that. That's great.
Yeah, we're just going to mention for a minute that HR Chair, Christina, worked very hard to try to get exit interviews in the previous years, and we knew how valuable they would be to us. To get that kind of information about, are teachers dissatisfied? Are they, burnt out? What's going on? And it was valuable information when we finally got a hold of some exit interviews. My one question about exit interviews is, can we broaden the results or the answers people get so we have more detail? Some of them are broad, like, retirement's great. Workplace fit, I find to be such a broad category. It would be nice if we could get some details. We don't want somebody telling us their whole life story up there, but first of all, I'm thrilled we have exit interviews, and secondly, I would love more details.
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. I've conducted exit interviews in a couple of different ways. We've sat down with 10 or 15 questions and asked them. Some districts have folks take an online survey. There's a lot of different ways to do that. This would be definitely some of the work that our assistant superintendent would be finding best practices moving forward, and certainly working with the subcommittee on gathering information that would be important to the Board of Education.
And I do believe it's a way to correct things if we know there's a problem. If we don't know there's a problem, we don't know what to do or who needs extra help in anything. So this is great. Thank you for this. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, the third report that I'm bringing forward is called an enrollment report. It just basically shows where the kids are, what grade level. I'm used to providing the Board of Education an enrollment report every single month. It's important to note that the October enrollment report is the big one. The October report, as many of you know, is the one we actually have to report to the state of Connecticut, and our funding is connected to that. Many other services that we receive are connected to our 10-1 enrollment report. This is one that it doesn't necessarily we need to pause and have a discussion every month, but I do think if the board so chooses, I do think it's a good idea to put this in the packet every month, even if it's in a consent agenda type of an addendum for the board to review. But it is important to at least pull it out once or twice a year to kind of look at the trends, because this eventually, the next trick that I'll pull out of my hat down the road will be a staffing report. And I think it's important to connect the enrollment report and the staffing report So we'll be working on staffing reports moving forward, because you want to make sure that the staff is flowing where your kids are, and that, you're adjusting your staffing to where the enrollment adjustments are each month. So as you can kind of take a look at it, as of 9/4, we have 3,384 students here in Weathersfield Public Schools. So I'll pause for any questions, thoughts, or considerations.
Yep, I have a question. So I'm going to go on an assumption, Mr. Wibby, that the kindergarten classrooms we have 2 at all the schools?
Not always 2. I can't speak to you exactly where we would have 3, but I do know that we have 3 and at least 1 or more, so.
Okay, because the numbers that Charles read are strikingly low because I know we don't have 3 at all 3 of those other schools, which means they have classrooms of 23, and Charles Wright has a classroom of 11 and 12.
That's correct.
So there's a disparity there in how our numbers are. So I'd be curious to know, and we are used to getting a staffing report as well, so that's so that's not nothing new for this board, but so it'd be interesting to see what our staffing is.
Yeah, we're going to be ready to provide a staffing report pretty soon, actually, maybe even at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just ask, if there's anything for Mr. Wibby, like any outliers, anything notable in this enrollment report, and as far as the numbers go that you're seeing, because this is your first enrollment report for us and you're new to the district.
I mean, the first thing that caught my eye was that we had huge numbers in kindergarten at Webb. We were looking at 25, so over the summer we were looking to remediate that, and that was the first thing that caught my eye. And we did open up, as I had mentioned, a 3rd section. We tried a couple of other things first, but that was the first thing that caught my eye, was the kinder numbers at Webb were very, very large at the time. It's just, I get very nervous at kindergarten sections that get 20 or above. It makes me nervous. I like to see kindergarten sections, ideally between 16 and 18, but 20 is, you can make them fly with at 20, but once you get over 20, I do get nervous with kinder sections.
Thank you. Yes, kindergarten teacher, thank you.
As you know, I mean, in kindergarten, as children are coming in, and many of them don't know how to tie their shoes. They're having, there's just so much that has to happen. And when that group size gets too large, it's hard to do any of the academic work inside the classroom, because their poor teachers are tying shoes and taking kids to the bathroom every 5 seconds, and it just becomes hard to manage a classroom when there's too many kids in there. 16 is ideal, 18 is good, and 20 is pushing it. That's my scientific assessment.
That's my experience.
Yeah. But it's interesting, yes, the kindergarten, 1st grade, those early childhood years are difficult. But you go into a 5th or 6th grade class that isn't sized right, there's too many children in there, and boy, is there very little room with all those big bodies. By that time, they're much bigger, they have more about them. So we like to keep an eye on those too, and keep them down low. And it really would be wonderful if we could right size all our classes. That would be the answer. Anybody else? Okay, thanks. Thank you.
My last report that I provided was just an observation that I made on Board of Education workflow and meeting process. So I put together a little bit of a memo here, and the cabinet team sitting here, we did a little bit of action research as we kind of work to reflect on operational practices, and we strive for efficiency and effectiveness. I'd like to respectfully recommend a review of the current workflow and frequency of Board of Ed and subcommittee meetings in Weathersfield. If you kind of take a look at our number of meetings and compare them to some of the other districts around, you see that Weathersfield has, 22 meetings a year. We have multiple standing committees and several joint and special meetings as well. And you kind of take a look at some of our neighbors in Rocky Hill who have 11 meetings, and Newington has 18, and South Windsor, she does them in 10 meetings a year. And, so it just kind of goes to show, and it goes to Liz's comment earlier, or her question earlier. We currently hold board meetings on second and the fourth Tuesdays of the month, but also subcommittees are at different times of the week. So, just a key insight that I notice, the Wethersfield board meets more frequently than most peer districts, often holding multiple meetings and subcommittees. This level of engagement reflects a strong commitment to transparency and collaboration, but it also may present some opportunities to streamline for efficiency and alignment with best practices. Holding meetings on different days and times each month makes scheduling and participation challenging for our citizens, our staff, and our board members. And I just listed here best practices according to the CGA, the General Assembly, and CABE. And I also put in here links to our Board of Education bylaws and our policies. And, what I ultimately recommend is that we kind of take a look over the course of the next year at our workflow. And I put in a couple of documents called Board of Education Workflow, which just lists month by month. And I just started to populate things that could be happening, whether it's action items, discussion items, or executive items, negotiations, RFP, legal, where they might fall. And this kind of helps you sketch out your year. When's the busy months? Busy months, you might really need 2 meetings plus subcommittees. There might be some light months where you can kind of shift off of that. And this process is helpful to kind of identify the flow. I put into the board packet, no reason, I just grabbed the policy and planning workflow. It's blank. We would want to work out when certain things are important to happen there. So you could do the same process at each and every committee meeting as well. And, I put a couple of options for consideration in the future. Potentially option A, you may have a board workshop. Many boards of education who have 2 meetings, they have a workshop meeting and a business meeting. Usually the workshop meeting is the first meeting of the month, the business meeting is the second meeting of the month. Sometimes within that workshop, you're actually doing committee work or committee meetings. So it just gives some ideas. Some board of eds, and this happens usually in smaller towns, they decide we're going to meet twice a month and we're a small board of 7 people. We're in a smaller town. We're going to do all our committee work together. So every committee kind of becomes a committee of the whole, the finance committee, the policy committee, and you just make that the workshop meeting of the whole each month. So these are a couple of options to look at and consider. I present these ideas for looking at things respectfully over the course of the next year, and have conversation and deliberation. And I'll pause there for comments or thoughts.
Christina?
Yeah, I really appreciate this, Superintendent Wavy, not just for the board members, but for the staff members. We've sat in student program meetings where administrators had to come up with a presentation and the teachers were there, and it's a long day for them. And we've lost some administration because of the amount of time that you have to spend after school. There's sports events and all those things. It's just very thoughtful of you to consider that, and I appreciate it. Especially for everyone that came to do these amazing presentations, but it was timely. I mean, another 3-4 hours after the school day.
I would also like to say that I appreciate the thought that went into these options presented. I think it would be a good idea to possibly reconsider how we meet, when we meet, why we meet, how often we meet. Being a board member, it's volunteer work. It can burn you out. I think if we were to meet less often with more purpose and accomplish the same thing, I don't see why we can't reimagine a different scenario as to how we organize our board meetings and our committee meetings. When I saw these options, I went back to my calendar from last year to see how many times I met, or how many times we met in terms of board meetings and committee meetings. And this doesn't even include all of the times that we meet on the side. Last year, I believe I went to about 40-ish meetings over the course of 30 nights. I feel like this would reduce that to about 20 nights, and we would accomplish the same thing. I think it would give more people more say on more issues if we were to meet as an entire board and discuss things that individual committees were discussing with a smaller subsection of the board. I also think it would draw more people into being a board member. I think it would be good if we can get younger people, people with children, people that may not be retired, to have a say in the board. I also think that we end up meeting a lot throughout the course of a year. I'm trying to see my list of what else we meet for, besides policy meetings and board meetings. We also meet for budget meetings. We do caucuses, we have special meetings, we have executive sessions, we have expulsion hearings, we meet with PTOs, we meet for contract negotiations. So I mean, you add up all the policy, all the committee meetings and all the board meetings and all of those meetings that I just mentioned, and it becomes a big time commitment. I think if we can cut into our time commitment a little bit, it would work wonders for all of us. So I appreciate this, and I look forward to thinking through this and talking through these options.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, Liz.
I echo Matt's sentiments 100%. And I also love the idea of coming at this from the perspective of what would work best, not, we've always done it this way. No one else does it like that.
No.
I love the forward thinking. I love the opportunities that this would open up for younger family members to participate in the board. I specifically waited until my youngest was out of high school. I don't know how families do it that have younger children, because this is always, at bedtime and things of that nature. But yet, when we think about the families who are closest to the education system that we support, they're the ones with littles. And so I'd love to see the possibilities that this would open up. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Anyone else? Jim?
I appreciate all this work, and to echo Matt's sentiments, I think to get more board members involved in subcommittees is a great idea. For myself, there are things that are presented by some of these subcommittees that I think are major changes, and I have no idea that they were even in discussion. So change can certainly be good. Thank you.
And just lastly, I think, the idea that all of us are meeting for all of the committee work, I think all of us take responsibility for what we know we need to go over as far as approving what, reading the minutes, the agendas, the minutes of all the other committees. So we're all doing all of the work to begin with, so this makes more sense. We're all responsible, and we all have some say.
Wasn't lastly, because I was going to say something. I personally love the workshop idea. I think it gives some good cross-collaboration across all of us to actually give input to ideas, which is always hard. I couldn't make everybody's committee meeting all the time, right? It gives us a chance to actually speak to something maybe you've already been discussing. And I think the other part of it that wasn't talked about is the public, right? Because if you do it this way, the public's going to actually hear all the work that we do throughout all those committees, which doesn't always get seen by the public. So I really love that idea, and I support it.
Definitely ups transparency for the citizens. Yeah.
It bothers me that we keep saying getting young people involved, because I've been involved for 14 years before my third child was even born. Jim has 3 young kids. John, I believe, 1 or 2 young kids. I
have 2 children.
2 children, younger, right? So there are people who have young kids who are getting involved. So changing it for that, I'm completely against. Changing it for other reasons, I'm for. But people keep bringing that up, and then there's at least 3 people I know running that have young kids, and they're running. So This keeps saying that we're trying to get younger people involved. We have plenty of people who have young kids involved.
That is one of the reasons this is being done. There's many reasons that we're looking at this. That's one. And I do know of a couple of board members who have had to leave because they just don't have the time. And there's others who can juggle it all. So I would like this for a variety of reasons, and one of them, too, is we're like the recital after we have all these practices in these committees, and then we come here and we talk about it in a short minutes of that meeting. So it's really not understood by all. And this is the way to get everybody involved on the board in all the committees, and also for other people to say, I can use that time wisely, I can do this. So that's what I'm talking about here. I think all of us are talking about this. We're not saying we're doing this for young people out there to be on our board. We want them on our board.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, though, Chuck. I'm kind of surprised that you are calling
No.
that.
I'm saying there's plenty of people who have young kids on this board who chose it. And I wasn't done with my comments, but I was cut off. And remember that state statute says we are a meeting of the board in public, not for the public. And I constantly remind that we're not here for the public. It's a meeting in public, not for the public. And until we learn what our roles and responsibilities are, it's hard to do what's right. But I have no problem with young people running. We have plenty of them running on this time around with young kids. So I don't know what surprises you, John. I'm just saying I've been around 14 years.
It does, because
before my third one was
I can tell
born.
you on a personal level, right? I mean, there's a lot of work that goes on here. I made a lot of sacrifices, right? If there was a chance that there's another younger family that could have utilized a smaller schedule, I mean, if they really wanted to be in public service, which is, by the way, is a great choice to do, I'm all for it. I'm surprised that you'd bring that up that way.
Yeah, and I don't see that as being the main driving factor in doing this. I think it's a benefit that comes along with it. I like the idea personally of everybody being involved in the decisions that go on in the committees. I've really never been to a communications committee meeting. I've never been to a student programs and services committee meeting. Some of the people on those committee meetings have never been to my committee meetings. I think if more board members could have more say in more issues, I think that is the main driving factor behind this. I think if we can meet less often and accomplish the same thing, and it would also encourage more people to run and get involved with municipal government, I think that that's just a side benefit. I don't think that is the main driving factor. But I don't see what's wrong with that. I don't see what's wrong with crafting a municipal government that enables more people to get involved and not less. I've had conversations with possible candidates that we have been trying to run on our side, and when I explain to them the process and the time commitment and what it is, it's a deterrent. So I don't think that's the main factor or the main reason for why we're doing this, but I do think that it is beneficial for that reason as well.
I would just say that I will find, I do, if we do it this way, I will know more. I will know more as a committee person, as a Board of Ed person, and also like especially students, programs and services, or any situation where staff is presenting in a committee forum. Like, so much work goes into that, and I will have a deeper understanding of kind of what goes into that, and what they're offering or what they're trying to get us to approve if we change to this kind of schedule. So I'm all for it.
And
Liz?
last thought. So, I agree, these meetings are not, the meetings are public meetings, but we're all up here because we were elected by the public to represent them. This is 100% a servant leadership position where we are supposed to represent the town, regardless of political affiliation, anything. We're supposed to keep our ears open. It's better, I always think it's better if I keep my ears open and my mouth closed. We learn so much more when we listen, and I think we are doing this, for the public. I get that this is not a meeting for the public, but we're servant leaders representing the town. We serve at the pleasure of the town people.
Okay, you think we discussed that enough? I think all set?
Chuck, just for the record, I think you're a young person.
Okay, so we'll move on. So meetings held. Well, we almost had our WEC meeting, but it was postponed until the 22nd, I believe?
Yes.
Okay, so that's on then. All right, for meeting scheduled, we have Finance and Operations Committee on September 23rd, 25. Human Resources and Personnel Committee, that's next Monday on 9/15/25, and the CREC Council, which is on 9/17/2025. And is there anyone wishing to make a public comment? Please come on up to the podium and state your name and address, and may I remind you that you have 5 minutes. Okay. Are there any board comments? Christina?
Yes, thank you, Bobby. So I wanted to present Superintendent Wibby with a gift from Dorena Federici, who's the Vice President for the Weathersfield Chamber of Commerce. I've had the opportunity and pleasure to be on the wall committee meeting, so I think I missed one, but I've been working on this not just because my husband's a veteran, but because this is a wonderful opportunity for Weathersfield to bring the wall, which is a monument. It's coming tomorrow. They're setting it up, and on 9/11, they're going to have a great just presentation of different people. And I did want to mention that some of those people are motorcycle riders who are bringing in the wall, and Veterans for Peace, which is just different perspectives. So sometimes people think Vietnam Wall, war, and it's just really cool to have different perspectives for this great, for the town, but also just for this opportunity for students. Superintendent Weeby sent everything out to the staff. It's allowing teachers to plan field trips, which is just awesome. I know it's last minute and it's, the start of the school year, but these teachers are trying to figure out a way to get the students down there. So Dorena sent a couple of books in a camouflage bag, and she was really proud to bring all of this together. So I get to give this to you. So here you go. Yeah. Then lastly, Bobby's going to join me reading on Thursday, and then if you want to see our superintendent reading to kids on Friday afternoon, that would be great. So I think the weather's going to be beautiful. Bring a blanket, bring a towel, put your cell phones away. It's a little, commercial for that, but bring dinner down and just watch, do the wall and maybe even look up names for the wall. So I'm really excited about it. And Bobby, go ahead. I think you want to talk about the book.
My segue right here. So this wall is, if you've been to Washington, D.C., and you've seen the Vietnam Memorial, there are tears in everybody's eyes. It really is very dramatic. But I always like to think of how a child looks at things. So we do have a book. It's called The Wall. And if parents can get a hold of it, it is a fabulous book about the Vietnam War Memorial. And it helps children understand that we're not saying that we need war. We need to understand the causes and to produce peace. It's a wonderful book that explains it to a child. So many of us will be reading this at Cove Park. I'm so excited to be reading it. And so please join us as we uncover this moving tale behind the wall and discover how honoring the past shapes our future. Hope to see you all there. Anyone else for closing remarks? Marjorie?
I attended the first WSPC meeting of the school year, and that's the Weathersfield Schools Parent Council. And again, just to remind people that it's a representative or two representatives sometimes from each school in the district, and we get together the first Thursday of every month at the central office. Anybody's welcome. Any parents are welcome to just come and observe. And the first hour or the first part is usually a report by the superintendent. Mr. Whippy was there, his first meeting, and it's always very informative. And then we also talk about what's going on at our schools and any actions or activities that the WSBC is putting on. So they're doing a lot already, which is great. One of the things they're bringing back is instead of Movie on the Green, which WSBC used to do to kick off the school year, they're doing Movie on Cove Park. And it's on October 7th. I forget the movie. It's an animated movie. I forget the movie. But it's from 5 to 9 p.m. And it's going to be lots of different things. There's going to be a DJ, the movie itself, obviously, some bounce houses. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So a lot of things happening at the Cove Park this season. But anyone's welcome to come. Another chance to just sit, enjoy life, bring a blanket, and hang out with your kids, and they'll just run around pretty much. And they are also going to do a little differently this year, where they're going to try to bring a guest in every meeting for the WSBC, and try to just inform parents. And one of the things that happens is every member of the WSBC that hears whatever's happening at the meeting, they go back to report to their PTOs, and then everyone at the PTO meeting gets to hear what's happening. So the first guest was just confirmed as be Mike Barabalt, who's our director of security, and he's going to explain and talk about security in the school district. So that's great that they're starting to do kind of a more formal guest structure every meeting. Their first big fundraiser is Port of Vallarta Night on October 7th, which is, love that restaurant, and they do an amazing service for this town, honestly, in the school district, with so much of their giving to our students. And WSBC is also going to be promoting Walk, Bike, Roll Day on October 8th, which we as a district have done for really many, many, many years. It gets everyone very excited just to make their body move and walk and meet in groups to walk to school or ride their bike to school or roll or whatever they're going to do, scoot. And we used to be able to give out goodies. I think over the past few years they haven't really had any tchotchkes they could give out. They used to be funded by the Department of Transportation, but it's still like a great way for the community to come together and walk a little. And then finally, the Wethersfield Education Foundation. I don't know if you were going to bring this up, Bobby, but they're having.
That's okay.
I'm so excited about it. They're having a trivia night.
We got our team.
We have a team. Anyone else want to join the team? I will put it out there. October 3rd, it's a Friday, and it's like $20 a person at Pitkin. They're going to have a trivia guy do trivia, and everyone has their different teams, but it's a fun way to get together, bring your own food, and all the proceeds go to supporting the Wethersfield Education Foundation, which does a great service as far as giving little grants to teachers all over the district to do special things in their classrooms. So anyone want to join or add a team and we can compete, let me know.
We call a friend.
Call a friend.
Okay, anyone else for closing comments? Liz?
Just quickly, I had the pleasure of making the acquaintance of Kelsey Rogers, who is the STEM career and events coordinator at the Connecticut Science Center. And she was able to give me a lot of information for opportunities that are open to juniors and seniors in high school for STEM internships. I have passed this along to Mrs. Collins at the high school, who is already meeting with Mark Danaher, who you may know is the lead for the Career Advisory Board, to see what can be done for Wethersfield High School. So I look forward to continuing to report on any opportunities that the Science Center has. They've offered opportunities from pre-K all the way up through seniors. Wonderful programs coming to Wethersfield or going to the Science Center, different opportunities to go into environments where, from a sensory perspective, it's more, I don't know, it's more comfortable for students who may have concerns with certain sensories. But I look forward to bringing more updates to the board. Very excited about that.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Anyone else with board comments? All right. Usually at this time, Anusha, we have you talk about life at the high school. So we'll look forward to that in 2 weeks. All right. Well, we'll move on. Any unfinished business? Nothing here? All right. Liz, I have a quote. Hold on.
Love it.
I got it here somewhere. A very timely quote, too, by Colin Powell, who was a general. He was also a Secretary of State. There are no secrets for success. It is a result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. Sounds like a plan. All right. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and good night.
No, we have to.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Thank you. All not opposed, approved?
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposition? No. Thank you.